was just sitting at my laptop, mindlessly scrolling through forums late at night when it happened. One moment, Google Translate was just a blank page. The next, a line of text appeared in English that I hadn't typed. It was specific, too specific. It referenced my morning coffee, the song I had hummed on my way to the desk, even the fact that I'd accidentally spilled a little water on the corner of my keyboard. The words weren't polite. They were urgent. Stop. Don't look away. It's closer than you think. I froze. My hands hovered over the keyboard. The low hum of my computer grew louder, almost resonant, like it was vibrating against my skull. My monitor flickered once, twice, then stably showed the same message, as if nothing had happened. I shook my head. Maybe it was a glitch. Maybe it was a prank. But the hair on my arms was standing on end, and I swear I felt someone or something watching me from just outside my peripheral vision. I tried to close the browser. Nothing. The tab wouldn't respond. I tried rebooting. The humming stayed, steady, insistent, and the text reappeared immediately. If you're watching this, it already knows you're listening. I leaned back in my chair, stomach tight, every rational thought fleeing. This wasn't normal. It wasn't just a tech glitch or a random coincidence. Something had pierced the veil of my ordinary night, and I couldn't tell where the computer ended and whatever was outside or beyond began. I can't explain it fully right now, and I know how insane it sounds. But before you dismiss it as paranoia, I need to explain how this started before you think I'm exaggerating. Or worse, before it finds a way to reach you too. I've never considered myself someone who believes in ghosts or curses. My life is mostly ordinary. Work, a couple of friends, late-night internet rabbit holes. That night was no different. I was scrolling through forums, the kind filled with real experiences and half-baked digital rituals, trying to distract myself from the boredom that had settled over me like dust. Some threads caught my eye. People claiming they could summon spirits using nothing but a computer, a translation tool, and a few phrases in dead languages. I laughed, naturally. The posts were dramatic, the stories overly elaborate, and I thought to myself, why not try it? Boredom is a powerful motivator, after all. I opened Google Translate and started typing random phrases from the forum instructions, ancient words, names of forgotten entities, strings of symbols I didn't understand. The first few translations were nothing more than gibberish, sometimes accidentally hilarious. One line I typed, "Do you see the shadows?" translated into a half-English, half-Polish sentence that read, "Your cat is dancing on the ceiling." I chuckled at the absurdity and continued. That was the pattern at first, harmless, even funny. But there were little things I couldn't explain. My mouse would freeze mid-motion for a fraction of a second. The lights would dim like a slow inhale, and occasionally my speakers would emit a barely audible hum. I chalked it up to old hardware quirks, but in the back of my mind, something niggled, a sensation that the program was noticing me. Then, after copying a particularly long string of letters and hitting translate. The text box blinked, and a line appeared that wasn't mine. Not typed by me, not suggested by the autocomplete, not even a prediction. It was a sentence that described exactly what I had been doing 5 seconds earlier, down to the posture I was sitting in and the way my fingers hovered over the keys. That's when the humor died. The first real message wasn't a joke. It was alive. I froze. The cursor blinked in Google Translate, steady, almost taunting. Then the text box began filling itself, letter by letter, without me touching the keyboard. My heart hammered as I read the words that scrolled across the screen. I see you. You are tired. Stop fidgeting with the mouse. You spilled your coffee again, didn't you? Every detail was exact. Every gesture, every minor annoyance from earlier that day, it was all there. My fingers hovered uselessly over the keyboard. I wanted to believe it was some weird autocorrect glitch or a hacked script, but deep down, a cold part of my brain knew better. I looked around the room. The lights flickered, subtle at first, then brighter, like a strobe in slow motion. My chair creaked, though I hadn't shifted my weight. A pen rolled off the desk toward the corner, seemingly nudged by some invisible hand. I swallowed hard, rational thoughts battling panic. Old hardware, faulty wiring, stress, nothing supernatural. I repeated to myself, but the tight knot in my stomach refused to loosen. The text kept coming, faster now, almost conversational. Don't ignore me. Look behind you. The reflection is lying. You aren't alone. I twisted in my chair, scanning the room, but it was empty. Or at least, it looked empty. The reflection in the dark window didn't match what I expected. Shadows moved where they shouldn't have. Edges of my desk and computer appeared distorted, like the world itself had warped ever so slightly. Then it hit me. There was a line I couldn't understand, encrypted, scrambled with symbols that weren't part of any language I knew. Delta Epsilon letter 1 FD6, Xi Omicron Nu Tau, letter 1 F78, Nu Phi Omicron Beta Omicron Nu, Sigma Omicron Upsilon. Whatever it meant, it carried weight. It wasn't a simple translation error. It felt intentional. A message meant for me, but from something that existed outside my comprehension. My fingers itched to type a response, but my instincts screamed no. And then it said something that made my blood run cold. You thought this was a game. I am the game. I leaned back, heart pounding, trying to find a logical explanation. Maybe it was AI. Maybe it was some hacker pulling strings in real time. Maybe I was losing it. Every rational thought clashed violently with the undeniable sense that something conscious, aware, and hostile was observing me through the screen. And yet, the text wasn't alone. Something else was happening around me. The next morning, I woke up to a buzzing phone and a sick feeling I couldn't shake. Notifications stacked on top of each other, missed calls, unread messages, confused texts from friends asking what I meant by the warnings. I didn't remember sending anything. In fact, I didn't remember going to bed. When I opened my chat apps, my breath caught in my throat. Message after message had been sent from my account. Long strings of distorted characters, symbols that didn't belong to any known alphabet, and blurred images that looked like faces pressed against glass. Some pictures were darker, taken in low light, and the scariest part was that in a few of them, I recognized the corner of my room. One friend had written, "Are you okay? Why did you send me that audio? What were you whispering?" I hadn't sent any audio. I tapped it, hands trembling. A faint static filled my ear, like a radio struggling to tune. Then, underneath it, a voice, my voice, or something trying very hard to sound like me, murmured broken phrases. I couldn't make out all of it, but one line was painfully clear. "It's already watching you." I nearly dropped the phone. I rushed to my computer, hopping for answers, but all I found was something worse. Google Translate was open again. I didn't remember opening it. The text box was full, overflowing with lines of dialogue I'd never typed. "Stop pretending you don't hear me. Your heartbeat is loud today. Why didn't you tell them the truth?" My stomach twisted. I stared at the screen, reading and rereading the words, as if repetition might somehow make them less real. But then the cursor moved on its own, and a new line formed. "Check sent emails." My blood turned to ice. I opened my email and felt my heart drop. Dozens of outgoing messages, time-stamped throughout the night, had been sent to random contacts, old coworkers, distant relatives, and even addresses I didn't recognize. Each email contained only a single sentence, repeated word for word. "I know what you did. I didn't do anything." But now, because of whatever had hijacked my devices, it looked like I was threatening half my contact list. That was when I realized something else. For the past few days, I had been misplacing minutes, small gaps, in time I brushed off as daydreaming or distraction. But now, the gaps felt intentional, like something was using me when I wasn't fully there. Everywhere I went, I felt watched. In the corners of my vision, shadows stretched just a little too far. Reflections lagged by a fraction of a second. My phone camera turned on by itself more than once. And the worst part, I could no longer deny the truth. I wasn't the one sending these messages, but whoever, or whatever, was, it knew everything about me. At first, I thought the flickering lights were just another glitch, the kind you blame on old wiring or a loose bulb. But that night, the room didn't flicker, it pulsed. Each dimming felt synchronized with my breathing, like the walls were inhaling when I exhaled. I stood completely still, listening, and realized the air had weight to it, a heavy pressure settling on my shoulders. The room wasn't just dimming, it was reacting. Every instinct in me screamed to leave, but my legs refused to move, as if the floor itself had tightened around my feet, holding me in place. I forced myself to blink, And that was when I saw it, just for a fraction of a second, but enough to knot my stomach. The shadow in the corner didn't match anything in the room. It stretched upward, long and thin, ignoring the angle of the lamp entirely. When I leaned closer, the shadow leaned too, but not in a mirrored way. It tilted its head, observing me, curious but hungry. I stepped back, heart pounding in my throat, and it retreated as if disappointed. That was when I realized something even worse. The shadow didn't belong to a person. It moved with intention, but not with a body. Objects in my room began to shift, subtly at first, then boldly. My desk chair rolled 2 inches to the left while I watched. A pen lifted, rattled, then dropped, as if someone had tested its weight. Even my blankets stirred, dragging slowly across the floor like something crawled beneath them. But what terrified me most were the mirrors. Every reflective surface, the window, my phone screen, the black shine of my monitor, began showing glimpses of movement behind me. Not full figures, just impressions. A hand withdrawing, a face too close, a silhouette bending over my shoulder. Each time I turned around, nothing was there. Each time I turned back, the reflections lingered a moment too long, as though disappointed I'd noticed. Humming sound that had followed me for days grew louder, vibrating through the floorboards and into my ribs. It wasn't mechanical. It wasn't electrical. It felt alive, a deep, resonant frequency that seemed to rearrange the air itself. When I covered my ears, it didn't muffle. It only burrowed deeper into my skull. Somewhere in the noise, I started to hear fragments like syllables forming, trying to shape themselves into language. The lights flickered again, but this time, instead of dimming, they bent. The glow warped, stretching toward the corners where the shadows waited. The ceiling creaked, though nothing touched it. The walls tightened, groaning softly like they were breathing. And for the first time, I realized the room wasn't changing randomly. It was responding to me, reacting to my fear, feeding on it. I stumbled back toward my desk, but the floor felt uneven, as though the boards had shifted into new shapes. My computer monitor flickered to life without me touching it. The desktop background warped, colors bleeding into each other like wet paint. Files began opening in rapid succession: images, documents, audio clips, none of which I recognized. One image froze my breath in my throat, a picture of me sleeping, taken from inches away. Before I could react, another file opened, then another, each more distorted than the last. A final window appeared, black at first, then slowly filling with text typed by invisible hands. "Keep watching." I felt the room leaning in, listening with me. Everything around me creaked in anticipation. And then, the files on my computer started to change themselves. Everything shifted again around me. The first file appeared with a soft chime, one I'd never heard my computer make before. A notification slid across the corner of my screen, reading simply, "New item added." No program name, no source, just those 3 words, blinking like a heartbeat. I hesitated before clicking it open, but curiosity dug its claws in before fear could stop me. It was a photograph. Grainy, dim, taken at an angle that made my skin crawl. I recognized the scene instantly. My bedroom. The picture was snapped from just behind my open door, angled slightly downward. In it, I was lying in bed, eyes closed, mouth slightly parted, breathing deeply in sleep. My first thought was that someone had broken in, but the timestamp snapped that theory in half. It claimed the photo had been taken 6 minutes in the future. I stared at the numbers, waiting for them to correct themselves, but they didn't. They stayed fixed, taunting me with their impossibility. Before I could process it, more files began to appear. One by one, dozens, each labeled with a random string of numbers, like corrupted metadata. I opened a second image and felt the blood drain from my face. It was another photo of me, but this time I wasn't sleeping. I was sitting exactly where I was now at my desk, staring into my screen. Except in the photo, I wasn't alone. A figure stood behind me, blurry and stretched, like a smudge that had gained mass. Its hand hovered inches above my shoulder, fingers impossibly long. I whipped around, but the room behind me was empty. Still, my skin burned, as though something had just pulled away. A video file opened on its own. The speakers crackled, and a low whisper my voice, but wrong filled the room. The clip showed me walking down a hallway I didn't recognize, turning corners as if searching for someone. Every few frames, the screen glitched, warping my body into angles no human could bend into. The timestamp claimed the video was from 2 days earlier, a day I had spent entirely at home. Then came the audio recordings. Soft breaths, slow footsteps, a faint laugh that didn't echo, as though whoever made the sound had no real space around them. One clip ended with a phrase whispered so close to the mic it distorted the sound. "I'm the only one who can see this," or so I thought. My hands shook as I tried selecting everything at once. Delete, delete, delete. But the files stayed. More appeared. The recycle bin emptied itself and filled again with new data. A final notification blinked onto the screen, no sound this time, just text. Sleep became impossible. Every time my eyes closed, the shadows in the corners of my vision stretched, whispered, or simply watched. My phone vibrated constantly, notifications piling up from apps I hadn't opened. Each one contained a fragment of text I didn't type, photos I didn't take, voices I didn't record. Sometimes it was my own face staring back at me, twisted, warped, terrified. I started noticing patterns. Every time I glanced at my screen, a new message appeared, a comment on a forum, a post in a chat, a note in my email. All of them referenced me, my room, my thoughts. One line appeared in bold in a blank text document. "Every click you make, every second you watch this, it feeds." My heart raced. I realized that even by reading, by paying attention, by simply noticing, I was giving it power. It didn't just exist in my digital world, it existed through me, through my engagement, through the act of watching, listening, acknowledging. Hallucinations crept in, subtle at first. The reflection in my monitor wasn't quite right. Sometimes my own figure in the glass lagged behind me, like a poorly synced video. Other times, my reflection blinked when I didn't, smiled when I grimaced, leaned closer when I fell back. I would turn quickly, convinced something was behind me, only to find empty air. And then I would hear the faintest scrape of nails, just behind my chair, barely audible, but unmistakably present. Friends tried to check in. I sent incoherent messages, apologizing for disappearing, for the weird things I'd said. But their responses barely registered. I couldn't trust anything outside my screen. Even reality felt distorted, as though the world had shifted to make space for it. I understood then this wasn't a prank, a glitch, or a haunted device. It was feeding. On fear, on attention, on the act of noticing. The more I interacted with it, the more it grew. And I knew deep down that anyone who stumbled onto this story, anyone watching, anyone reading, could become part of it too. The hallucinations and digital chaos blurred together. My bed felt miles away. My keyboard vibrated beneath my fingers as I typed, trying desperately to regain control. But there was no control. It had already nested in every screen, every device, every reflection. By the time I realized it, the room had stopped feeling like my own. The walls pulsed in sync with the low, thrumming hum that had haunted me for days. Screens, phones, cameras, every reflective surface in sight began flickering simultaneously, projecting fragments of images. My face twisted, my room warped, shadows bending in impossible angles. And then I heard it, the whispers. Soft at first, layered under the hum, almost drowned out by the electricity in the air. They spoke in a language I didn't know, syllables curling around me, bending my thoughts, making my heartbeat skip. And then I understood, clearly and horrifically. If you hear the whispers while watching, you've already crossed the threshold. Every device I owned seemed alive now. My desktop keyboard typed on its own, letters forming words I didn't recognize. My phone rang, vibrated, and rang again, displaying numbers I had never dialed. And in every corner of the room, shadows pooled and shifted as though drawn toward a single point, gathering shape, mass, and intent. The entity revealed itself, not as a figure, not fully human, not entirely digital, but a presence that could bleed across boundaries. A shape formed in the corner, fractal and flickering, composed of pixels and darkness, reaching out to me, breathing, pulsating with awareness. It didn't need a voice. Its existence radiated in my chest, vibrating through my bones, into my very perception. I tried to look away, tried to shut my eyes, tried to deny it. But curiosity had already bound me, and the entity fed on that attention. The longer I stared, the more real it became, and I understood its terrible rule. It didn't just haunt the curious, it multiplied through them. Every person who interacted with it, every glance, every click, every pause, it grew stronger. It was parasitic, self-propagating, and patient. I reached for my mouse, desperate to close the window, shut the devices, end it all. But the words were already forming on screen. More will come. They will watch and they will feed. And then you will feed them. The room shifted violently, air thick and heavy, as if the world itself had bent to accommodate it. Screens glitched, shadows lurched, and the whispers rose into a chorus that carried my name, repeating, echoing, merging with every thought I had. And in that terrifying instant, I realized the truth. This had never been about me alone. It was about the cycle. Attention, curiosity, engagement, they were the keys, and I had unlocked it. I understood fully what it wanted, and I wasn't ready to give it, not yet. But it didn't wait for permission. It had already begun to spread, reaching beyond the boundaries of my room, my devices, my reality itself. 400 words. If you're still here, still listening, then I need you to pay attention. Not the casual kind, the real kind. The kind where you feel the air shift around you, where you glance at your screen a little too long, wondering if something moved behind your reflection. Because before anything else, I need to say this clearly. If you even think about typing those words, don't. I'm not trying to scare you for the sake of a story. I'm not exaggerating. I'm not being dramatic. I'm telling you the one thing I wish someone had told me before I ever opened Google Translate that night. Some tools weren't designed for communication. They were built wide open. And things slip through open doors. You might think you're safe because you're just watching, just listening, just curious. That's what I thought too. But the entity doesn't care whether you meant to summon it. Curiosity is enough. Attention is enough. You're here hearing this. That's enough. And maybe you've already noticed it. Your screen flickering once. Your audio popping for a split second. Your phone buzzing even though no notification appeared. Those aren't glitches. That's how it starts. The smallest signs. The kind you dismiss until they begin multiplying. Look, I'm not telling you to like this video or leave a comment because it helps me. I'm telling you because I need to track it. The more reports, the better chance someone can map what it's doing. If anything strange happens, anything, you need to say something. Someone else in the comments might already be dealing with the same thing. Maybe they've seen more than I have. Curiosity brought you here, but curiosity is also what it feeds on. So if you start feeling watched after this, if you feel that low humming in your ears, if Google Translate suddenly generates a phrase you didn't type, even for a heartbeat, stop. Shut everything down. Don't give it your attention. Don't meet it halfway. Hold on. Something just appeared. Top right corner of my screen, like a normal notification, except it isn't using any app I recognize. No icon, no sender, just text, and a timestamp that can't be right.